20 is a big number. This isn't like a marginal thing. He's got to turn three-quarters of these people around. But let me tell you something. Jake said that he's made a cornucopia of concessions. He's surrendered. I mean, the truth of the matter is, whether the 20 want to accept it or not, they've won. They've won. Either McCarthy becomes a neutered, powerless speaker who has a sword of Damocles over his head that could fall at any time because anybody in that body could call to vacate the chair, or someone else becomes speaker. But they have won this. I mean, the only thing that's left is for one of them to drive out with McCarthy's car and another one to wear his coat. And I mean, he's given everything away.
But Ax, do you think if you give in to these, if McCarthy gives in here, right, to these folks, whoever's next is going to experience the exact same scenario?
My concern is not for the Republican Party. My concern is for the country.
Right.
Well, I think this is going to be, this is a precursor of an awful couple of years.
Yeah. And that's a really important point because, again, giving all the things that he's giving away, not just at what cost, but what is that going to look like over the next couple of years?
Yeah.
If every day, every week, we are back here having to vote again, nothing is going to move. And, the other thing I do want to say, this is exactly what the American people voted against. You have a handful of MAGA extremists, destructionists, I would call them, basically holding the United States House hostage over the things that they want, which are not the things that a majority of Americans voted for, who voted for, hey, we want you to get some things done, which, by the way, your former boss, Scott, Mitch McConnell sent a very strong message, it seems to me, to the House yesterday to say, I'm not going to play that game with y'all.
The House doesn't have to do a ton of stuff. It needs to pass a budget. We'll have to do the debt limit. It needs to pass appropriations bills. But those three things, if you couldn't wrangle these 5 to 10 people, then all of a sudden the Republicans are over begging Democrats for help. And by the way, the help won't come for free. You'll end up with Republicans having to give away goodness knows what to Hakeem Jeffries to get the votes to do the basic functionings of government, which no Republican voted for, I can assure you, anywhere in the country. And so that, to me, whoever becomes speaker here, I still think McCarthy has a good chance, but what does this portend for the future?
Those discussions have happened, by the way, between moderate Republicans and some on the Democratic side who've expressed a willingness to consider it. But what they've been told is McCarthy doesn't want to do that because he feels, this is the box he's in. To cooperate with Democrats is a death sentence for him as well. So he's really in a terrible position.
Well, listen, I don't think it's going to be as bad as you'd like to see and predict. I think once you get the speaker, you're going to have robust oversight from Jim Jordan, the Judiciary Committee. You're going to have robust oversight of the border by whoever the chairman of Homeland Security is. There's going to be aggressive oversight. As I said before, oversight by a majority of one feels exactly the same.
I'm not looking for chaos.
No,
I'm not. What I'm worried about is, for example, when the debt ceiling has to be
that's in August, right? Yeah.
And the Speaker of the House does the responsible thing and doesn't let the country default on its credit. That will almost certainly trigger one of these motions, and you'll have another one of these. We'll be all sitting around here watching the roll being
But that's been a Republican problem. Every time we approach the debt ceiling, Republicans struggle with that, right? So that's not a McCarthy problem.
But not at the risk of being.
That's right.
Not at the risk of being deposed.
Right,
So just as we're hearing these in the back of our ears, and our viewers are hearing it as well. Matt Gaetz, who obviously has, is one of the never, has just voted for Trump.
Voted for Trump?
Voted for Trump.
Okay.
He's trying to get back in the good graces, I suppose, right? Maybe Lauren Boebert will vote for Trump too. Since she told him to kind of shut up and go away.
Well, that is a big issue here. He had no impact on the purest MAGA congressman.
Well, he's come out and said go for McCarthy, right? He did.
Yeah, he had no impact, and not only did he have no impact, and then Boebert goes down to the floor and is ordering him around in public. I mean, it was kind of humiliating, truthfully.
Yeah. I mean, I could predict with 100% certainty that Donald Trump will not be sending Lauren Boebert a Christmas card next year.
I was looking at a poll that came out this week, and there were ratings of various legislative leaders. Nancy Pelosi among Democrats was 73-19. Kevin McCarthy among Republicans, 42-33. It's not like he's a beloved figure among Republicans, so they're fighting over a guy. You know, no one wants to storm the ramparts for.
I mean, what Republican leader is? I mean, our sport is kicking the crap out of our own leadership. The Democrats have, you know, there's been internal wranglings, Karen, but, you know, ultimately you uplift your leaders. You know, you've uplifted Nancy Pelosi. But we are like crabs in a bucket. We have been for 12 years. One climbs to the top and everybody tries to drag them down. And by the way, there are consequences to that attitude, and we're seeing it today.
But also consider that Nancy Pelosi, I mean, because there's also a generational issue going on here with the 5 of the 20. I'm going to have to remember my numbers, right? In terms of how they view what their job really is. They view their job as getting clicks, raising money, creating chaos, not actually legislating.
Mission accomplished.
Mission accomplished. Yeah. But they're not actually interested in legislating. Pelosi understood where her caucus was, how to get people what they wanted, what they need. I mean, the fact that, for example, you have Kevin McCarthy just met with some of the freshmen, was it last night? He should have been doing that over the holiday to try to understand where the caucus was when he came in.
I don't think anybody here, these guys, anybody would disagree. Pelosi was a legislative genius. She was great at what she did. But there's a big gap between being a legislative genius and what we've seen these last few days, which has been a kind of parade of errors. You know, John F. Kennedy said in his inaugural address in a different context, those who foolishly sought power by riding the back of the tiger ended up inside. That's a little of what's going on right now. Kevin McCarthy has been placating these people for years, and now he may end up inside.
Right now you are watching Kevin McCarthy headed to his 7th defeat in his efforts to be named to be elected Speaker of the House. He needs to win 218 votes. He can only afford to lose 4 House Republicans. He has already lost 10 House Republicans. We knew that was the likely outcome today, Audie Cornish. What we were looking for to see if there was any movement because of all the concessions he made when it came to rules and procedures, all the things that Congressman Chip Roy and some of the other rebels have been asking for. But as of now, I have not seen any of these individuals who claim to care about rules changes change their votes at all.
Right, and I think if you're watching at home, understand that each one of these votes sends a signal or a message. You don't actually have to know every single number which way. You just have to see, is it changing directionally? And Kevin McCarthy last night didn't want to have an additional vote at 8 o'clock because he said we need more time. It's been a whole night, we're into the next day, and the numbers aren't moving in the direction he would like. So what is the signal everyone else is trying to send is the question we should ask ourselves. And is there another demand or another name? And I don't know, everyone else here has cell phones with more people in it than me, but I don't know what the sort of want is at this point.
And let's bring in an ally of Kevin McCarthy, former Republican Congressman Rodney Davis of Illinois. First of all, Congressman, happy birthday. I can't imagine you would rather spend your birthday doing anything other than sitting in a room by yourself answering our questions when we choose to come to you. So happy birthday. But I have to say, I was told yesterday by a House Republican, a supporter of Kevin McCarthy, that the sudden move to adjourn at 8 p.m. last night after saying they were going to reconvene was because of fears among McCarthy allies, at least because of fears that someone was going to bring up Steve Scalise and nominate Steve Scalise. And you just heard Ken Buck a few minutes ago telling me that if McCarthy does not win this today, he will likely, or he will possibly put Steve Scalise's name as a nomination for the speakership. What do you think is going on right now?
Well, first of all, thanks for the birthday wishes. It's actually enjoyable to be alone in here than on the floor watching that circus if I was in Congress again. But in the end, I have not heard that was the reason why they wanted to go to a conference and adjourn last night. I heard the reason that they wanted to adjourn last night, Jake, was to actually go negotiate.
Sure.
I've heard that they've had fruitful negotiations, but in the end, this vote is going to be a telltale sign, as many of you have mentioned all day, of whether or not there's going to be some changes. Look specifically at Chip Roy. If Chip decides to change his vote to McCarthy or present, that's progress. And if Chip can live up to the commitment to get 10 people to come with him, I think you'll start to see some pressure going toward McCarthy and progress going toward McCarthy too.